Hi, I'm Sean Keefe. I run sales enablement for Skybox Security, and here's a demonstration video covering rule usage analysis. Firewall rule sets typically grow over time. As the firewall gets older, it inevitably begins to contain rules that are no longer needed or used. The task of finding unused rules and objects is handled in the Optimization and Cleanup feature of Firewall Assurance. Before we dive into rule usage, it's important to understand what time period we're working with. A rule that hasn't been used in 7 days has much less significance than a rule that hasn't been used in 180 days. We configure the rule usage period on a per firewall basis. Right-click on the firewall to change it. We're going to leave our time period set to all available. However, you can see the time period options you have to choose from. Let's start our analysis by choosing Firewalls by Rule Usage from the Optimization and Cleanup section. This brings us to the Firewalls tab in the data pane. We can see that the main firewall has one unused rule. The one is a link to drill down further. This brings us to the Optimization and Cleanup section for the main firewall. Across the top, we can see 4 tabs. Shadowed and redundant rules on the right, which are covered in their own training module, and rule and object usage tabs on the left, which we'll cover here. In the Rule Usage tab, we can see rules falling into 5 categories: unloggable, not logged, unused, contains unused objects, and used. This section also contains trace data information. We are currently looking at the unused rule category. These are rules with no hit count during the rule usage period. In our case, there is only one rule that meets this criteria. Next, we'll look at the category Contains Unused Objects. This shows 2 rules. We can click on a rule and see the normalized rule elements with their associated hit counts in the right-hand Details pane. We see a rule with 5 service objects. Only one of those objects has hit counts. This tells us the rule may be a candidate for remediation. It might be a good idea to remove those other services if they aren't being used. This would bring the rule in line with the least privilege principle and reduce the chance it gets used for nefarious activities. The third category we'll look at is used rules. This contains a list of rules that do have hit counts, and all of the objects in the rules have been hit as well. One of the common use cases here is to order the rules by hit count and to possibly change the order of the rules on the firewall to where high usage rules are moved more toward the top. Another use case here uses our trace data feature. Skybox has the ability to show ports and IP addresses associated with traffic passed by a rule. This can be especially helpful when attempting to trim down an overly permissive rule that contains large objects or the any object. When we highlight rule number 9, we can see it uses an any object for the destination and service, and another large object that in turn contains 3 objects for the source. When we hover on any of these objects, we can see the IP addresses or ports associated with the traffic passed by this rule during the rule usage time period. Now, an administrator would have the necessary data to create smaller address and port groups without impacting access to applications. Choosing which objects to collect trace data on is handled in the syslog import task. By default, trace data will only be collected on the Any object. To configure the task to collect trace data on all objects, which is often the goal of many organizations, simply choose the third object and put a number 2 in the box. This will ensure that trace data works on any object with 2 or more addresses or ports in it. The second tab on this screen is Object Usage. Here we find information similar to the Rule Usage tab, only from the perspective of the object instead of the rule. Here we can see an object that is referenced in 3 rules, but only used in 1. In summary, rule and object usage provides administrators with powerful information to aid their quest of keeping rule sets tidy and relevant. Thank you for watching this video on rule usage analysis. Please visit our website for additional videos and other resources.